This is Robert Eubanks, the Networking Practice Manager at Netsync, and I want to welcome you to the Netsync Remote Workplace Series. Today we will be discussing the new reality of a remote workforce with our special guests, Netsync Solution Architects Kinton Connelly and Chris Kemsley. Kinton, Chris, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, Robert.
Thank you. So, due to the recent events with the COVID-19 outbreak, we're seeing a trend of workforces moving from office environments to remote teleworkers. Businesses now are needing the ability to deliver an in-office experience to remote employees without the cost of complex and traditional network architectures. So today I'm hoping for us to have a chance to talk through some of these challenges and requirements, and really want to see what you guys are seeing from their customers as they're trying to mobilize a remote workforce. So given kind of the current environment, given what we're seeing kind of going on with our customer base, what are some of the challenges you guys are seeing with your customers as they try to move to this remote workforce environment?
So Robert, the biggest challenge right up front, of course, is providing external access to all these corporate resources. These are the resources that previously have been locked up behind company firewalls, and now you've got all these remote users that need access to their email, intranet services, and other corporate services, things like HR, expense systems, and all that. Another thing they need access to is sometimes company phones, because not a lot of companies have transitioned over to mobilizing their workforce to the point where the workers all rely on their cell phones. A lot of them still have desk phones, and they've got numbers that customers have, the customers call when they need help. So the big problem is, how are you going to answer those phone calls? And of course, over all this, you got to have some way to manage all of this remote access. Not just the hardware assets, but you've got to be able to get some visibility into that network to see what's going on with all these remote users. You've got to have a way to manage security policies, because again, you've got a huge influx of new users, potential new security issues coming into your network. How do you distribute those security policies across all the users? And then to follow up on the phone piece, to follow up on the phone piece, these remote workers are doing a lot of phone calls. They're doing a lot of video calls. You need a way to establish quality of service across all these lines so that their corporate phone calls aren't being interrupted by all the cat videos being downloaded by the rest of the family.
Chris, you seeing anything different?
No, there's just probably a lot to add on to that. One of the biggest challenges of a home worker is, what are they actually working on when it comes to the connection that they have? Do they even have an internet connection? A lot of people used to go to the local Starbucks or McDonald's, and now they're finding out that those home internet services they had maybe weren't the best or most reliable connectivity. But assuming that's there, the next problem is, how does IT support all this? Your IT help desk probably was around the corner in the same building, at least had a number, and now they're just going to be a number, period. When they're looking at these issues or potential problems, a lot of the times we're tied to applications that we're utilizing, whether that's an email platform or a SaaS application. And how is IT even able to measure that when you're no longer on a corporate resource sitting at your house? Not only measure it, but how are we ensuring that it's secure for access, both those applications, the email themselves, how's it encrypted, etc., and how is that performance actually occurring across those links? And those are some huge IT challenges.
Definitely. So we've talked about some of the business requirements and some of the challenges that we're seeing. What types of solutions are you having conversations with our customers about? What solutions are out there to help address some of these challenges?
Well, there's two big solutions out there, and the first one of those is zero-touch provisioning. This is something that we offer through the Meraki appliances that we have, and this really kind of removes that need to pre-stage your equipment or have to pre-configure it before sending it out to the customer, or even worse, where they're having to go on site to actually configure the equipment to get it to work. It really can be as simple as having the device drop shipped from the manufacturer, maybe ship it out from your corporate depot, and just having the end user plug it in, and then everything comes up and it auto provisions itself into the network. The other piece then is backup connections, because as a lot of us know from working at home, these home network connections can be finicky. They're not the most reliable things. So what happens when you've got a remote worker that's in a critical role and they need to maintain that connectivity and their home network goes down? And you know the SLA on these types of things is, we'll get back to it in 24 to 48 hours and try to get it working for you. So in those cases, it's important to have some way to have a backup connection, whether that's a secondary wide area network or broadband connection, or whether you've got something like cellular backup to get you back on the network.
Yeah, I think, we talked about VPN when this started, and that's an easy first step into getting that remote access securely. A lot of times it doesn't solve for extended security policy, and it's a pretty big inconvenience to the home user to have to fire up a software package wherever they're at, log back in. A lot of single sign-on applications are involved with those types of solution sets. But how do we extend the corporate boundary into the home environment securely? And that's where we start talking about trusted access and 802.1x solutions that can extend onto these platforms.
Definitely. So I know that, we've kind of briefly talked about both software and hardware options that are out there, but truly there's a lot of benefits that can be had from the hardware solution itself. So what types of things and conversations are we having with customers around the hardware appliance as an option? What's driving that conversation?
One thing we like to stress is that most companies have some sort of software VPN going, and those are usually fine when you need kind of on-the-go access while you're traveling, or maybe even short-term use while you're at home. But really for longer-term use, and especially when you want to replicate that full at-the-office experience, a hardware VPN is going to give you a lot more benefits.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And add encryption capabilities on that hardware platform to take the software requirement away from that VPN client. So that may free up resources for things like VoIP access, as well as provide dedicated QoS services between applications. A big, huge additional benefit may be things like content filtering, and really, again, extending that corporate boundary. So I can put the corporate networks that you're used to seeing, or the school, wherever your environment is, at your office, directly into your home. So it's the same experience. When you open your device, you're on the network just like you were at work, and that creates consistency.
Yeah, definitely. And I imagine it'd make it easier for those non-technical employees that they're now having to work from home. If we can simplify the deployment, let's give them a box and they can bring their phone from work and then plug it into whatever internet connection they have at home and then replicate that in-office experience.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the components that make up this Meraki solution that we're talking about? We're talking about remote worker solutions. What components really come into play as we're having these conversations?
So there's really several options, but they're kind of just in two parts. There's the connection part back at the corporate office. We need something that's going to provide that secure connectivity into the central environment, that may be termed a head-in device or a concentrator. We prefer that be a Meraki device, since this solution, basically with the zero touch, uses that box, so that if you're mobile, that head-in appliance is consistent, and wherever your remote device is at, if you go to your mom's house and you take your hardware with you, or wherever you're at, even at home, if your cellular internet IP changes, that connection is automatically reestablished back to that device. So you start with that head-in concentrator, and that could be sized based on user connections or VPNs. It starts as something as small as like 50 users or 50 VPNs, and works all the way up into the thousands. And then you have, of course, the home hardware. That requirement is really dependent on the things we discussed earlier, like the voice handset is a desk phone from your office environment actually being utilized at your home, in which case a power might need to be there, or some type of power over Ethernet provided. That appliance or device for that home could start as something as small as a Z3 teleworker, which supports up to 5 connections. It's about as big as an iPhone 8 or one of the newer models, slightly thicker, but about the same size, so very small profile, and then goes up in size from there depending on the requirements. Additionally, just a simple access point could be utilized from Meraki, which is just a wireless AP. Plug it in, it connects back to, again, that head-end device, and now all the wireless connections are there. And those come in different sizes as well.
Okay. So from a wireless perspective, if we do the wireless model, that extends the corporate wireless or any corporate wireless settings that we want to extend into that home environment, security policies and all that as well.
Exactly. And that's the huge benefit as well. You know, you could, IT department can provision guest SSIDs or home SSIDs as well, and make sure that, you know, that's a policy procedure with your individual IT department, but that the capability exists to have both a corporate environment and a home environment within that access point.
So we talked about the access point, the Meraki MR, and then we also talked a little bit about the Z3. Are there other Meraki appliances, and are there any other models and features that may be worth noting?
Yeah, so, you know, in terms of the models you're looking at there, the Z3 models, the kind of lower end, smaller number of users. You've also got the MX model of appliances. And these are going to range from just having a few ports to having a lot more ports. You could have up to, you know, 2 wide area networking ports if you wanted to get that for failover. You're going to have the ability to either have a built-in kind of cellular LTE modem or maybe a USB port that you could plug an external modem into. And even better is you're going to have the option to have power over Ethernet ports so that when you send this router, this appliance out to a customer, they can just plug the appliance in and then plug their corporate phone in. The phone will get power, it'll get put on the corporate network, and then you'll be up and running in no time.
So it sounds like there's a lot of options from the smallest single user all the way up to a small branch, depending on what an organization or business is trying to turn up in a remote capacity.
Exactly.
And you mentioned failover. Do some of the models ship with cellular capabilities, or is that an add-on?
No, some do ship with cellular capabilities built in, where you just have to add a SIM card to get it on the network, and others have a port that you can plug in your own USB-based cellular modem.
Awesome. So we talked originally about some of the zero-touch capabilities. Talk me through how we really manage and support this. How is all this rolled out to this remote workforce?
The zero-touch provisioning really just involves, again, shipping that hardware directly out. And once that hardware gets an internet connection, it basically has a phone home feature. And Meraki is a purely cloud-managed solution. So what you get with that is an interface in a browser that provides for that IT entity to log in and set up all the functions of it. So we call that a single pane of glass. That's not, you know, like the single wine glass we get while we're in quarantine. That's the single point of management that you get to use with all Meraki products. So there's a lot in that other than just the setup of the devices. There's a lot of visibility that the Meraki dashboard, as it's termed, comes loaded with. That involves things like, what's the WAN actually doing? So now IT has the visibility to see the WAN utilization as well as application utilization. You know, how much Netflix or Hulu or whatever else is going on potentially over these devices actually occurring versus corporate usage, and that provides IT the ability to possibly change policy on there. You can also set, again, we discussed content filtering policies on those devices. And obviously, they now have direct remote visibility and troubleshooting. What's really nice about that dashboard when it comes to that zero touch is that it is one stop. You basically put in the serial number or the sales order that was provisioned for the devices to be shipped directly to those users' homes, apply the settings potentially before those devices even arrive, every policy, every bandwidth limitation, et cetera, that you would like as a policy from an IT perspective. When those devices plug in, which is simply just plugging them into an internet port or the cable modem at someone's home, they're going to phone back in with that serial number, and whatever was set in the dashboard is going to be pulled down. This includes firmware updates as well and any encryption settings. So those are all managed through the life cycle, which is a huge burden for IT people when you talk about a distributed network with potentially thousands of end devices. How are those being updated and secured? And the dashboard is solving all that for you.
Good. So, from a visibility perspective and troubleshooting, the tools that we've seen within the Meraki dashboard also gives, that IT professional the ability to really granularly see if they're getting a report that there's bad voice calls or bad things like that. We're able to manage that through the application performance monitoring that you mentioned, correct?
That's correct. Alerting can be set for thresholds. As well, Meraki's put a huge emphasis on API development. So if the dashboard's not meeting an organization's needs, they can customize through simple API calls to set up whatever type of alerting or monitoring functions they would like, because most of the functions of the solution are either programmable via an application interface or pullable or monitorable, if that's even a word, from the dashboard.
Okay. Well, Kinton, Chris, it's been a great discussion, and I want to thank you for your time, taking the time to chat with me today. For those watching, if you're interested in learning more about remote workforce solutions and how they can help you deliver an in-office experience to your remote employees, please either reach out to your local Netsync account manager or email sales@netsync.com. We'd love the opportunity to set up a follow-up meeting to discuss how remote workforce solutions from Meraki and others can help your specific business needs. This is Robert Eubanks, and from the entire Netsync team, I want to thank you for watching.